Hyattstown Christian Church and anyone else who has joined us today. We are beginning our morning with the Lenten reflection for Day 11 from Trevor Hudson's Journey Through Lent with 40 Words for 40 Days, Pauses for Lent. I'm going to turn on captions for those of you that need them, and they're really helpful. So this morning, the word is Abba for Day 11. From Mark 14, verse 36. Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Abba is a special word for Jesus, and he uses it to address God. Roman Catholic priest Albert Nolan points out, as a way of addressing and referring to God, it was unique. This term combines deep reverence, warm intimacy, and confident trust that displays the kind of relationship Jesus shares with his heavenly parent. But Jesus takes this term one step further. Not only does Jesus express this familiar relationship with God, but he also wants his followers to do the same. When they pray, Jesus tells his disciples to say, Father. They can share in the same kind of intimate relationship with God that Jesus has. The wonderful news is that we can too. When we open our hearts to the Spirit of Jesus, we are enabled to cry out, Abba. Now we also can begin to live as Abba's children, knowing we are deeply loved and cherished and held in a timeless embrace from which we can never be separated. And I'm going to share a little story that has come to my mind a few times over this, not just this Lenten journey, but I think over the past few. I was an intern at Baptist Health, and I had a patient that I had seen, and I don't even remember his name, and I wouldn't share it. Even if I did, I would, of course, give him a pseudonym. But he had struggled with addiction, and he had damaged his body so severely over and over and over again, and he was unable to see his children until he was in a better place. And I had visited with him so often that he had begun to share some things with me. And he had shared with me that the reason he just kept going back to this life that he had lived was that he just didn't feel worthy of living. And we talked about just all sorts of things, and found out that we had some things in common. We had liked a lot of the same music, and he noticed one day I wore sweaters, and at the time the hospital dress code was that you couldn't have any tattoos showing. So I wore sweaters, and even in the heat of summer, I wore tights, opaque tights that covered my tattoos, even when I wore skirts. But one day, I had pushed up my sleeve enough, or just the edge of it, that a tattoo kind of peeked out underneath my sweater. And he said, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, nothing." And I just kind of brushed it aside. And a couple days later, I'd stop by to visit, and he said, no, again, he had kind of seen under my watch strap. And I said, well, I have tattoos, and the dress code, we can't show them. And he just was really taken aback by that. And he said, so you're a pastor and you're a chaplain and you have tattoos? And I said, well, yeah, they kind of just tell my story. And he just kind of let me in a little further with that. And he said, at some point he said, I think I'm ready to do differently and to be different. And he goes, but I just don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how to believe that I'm of value. And we started talking, and I said, you know what? And I called him my name. And we're just going to pretend right now that his name is Chad. I said, you know what, Chad? I said, have you ever heard the term Imago Dei? And he said, no. And so we talked about, I said, can I share with you just a little bit about the Bible? And he said, well, I mean, I guess, that's what you're here for, right? And I said, no, I'm not here for that. I said, I'm here to just talk to you and to be someone who cares for you. He goes, yeah, but that's who you are, right? And I said, yeah. So we talked about the story of Genesis, and we talked about a God who created humankind in God's own image, in their image. And I said, so would you allow yourself to be called beloved? And so we wrote it, on those, they have the whiteboards that say patient weighs this much, patient's blood pressure is this, patient has to have this diet. In detox and in those specific rooms, they say other things. They have certain restrictions and certain visitors and phone call times and all of that. But I went up and wrote, I am beloved. And I visited him every single day. I visited Chad every day. And he was there on my first day of visiting patients, and he was there all the way to my last day. And about 3 or 4 weeks in, it changed from I am beloved to I am loved. And I just kind of looked at it, but I never said anything. He goes, you know what, Chaplain Monica? I said, no, what, Chad? He said, I changed it to I am loved. I am beloved. That just didn't work for me. And I said, oh, okay. He goes, but I am loved. That sounded right. And I wanted to be that. Because when I look at my kids, when I look at my son, I said, when I saw him being born, I said, I knew he was loved. We put headphones on, my wife's belly. He knew the music that I loved. From the moment I saw him, I knew he was loved. And I said, I know my mom loves me. I know, she sees the things I do, and I see her cry, and I said, so if I can remind myself that somewhere somebody loves me, then maybe I won't stick the needle in my arm next time, or one or some of the time. He goes, I can't promise that I'm never going to do it. He goes, I can't promise you that. And I said, well, you don't need to make me any promises. And that's how I knew I was going to go do some of the work that I was going to do. I couldn't tell you all the work, and I couldn't, but that conversation with that person changed how I thought of ministry. That conversation, that one person could be reminded that they were created in the image of God, in their brokenness, because he certainly wasn't shiny and new in that moment with his liver failing and his eyesight. He couldn't see out of his left eye at all. He was, 6'3" or 4" in a bed, weighing, I think, 130 pounds, could barely walk, and was, 28, 29 years old. And he, laying broken in that bed, could know that he was created in God's image. And this story that we're told of Jesus, saying that we are to call God Abba, that we are God's beloved, that is the story for me that reminds me that I too, in my brokenness, in my imperfectness, my asymmetries, my flaws, I too get to call God Abba, even though my earthly parents were not perfect in any way. So friends, my prayer for you today is to remind yourself that you are created in God's image, and to look at those around you in their brokenness and remind yourself that they too are beloved as they are. So today, know that you are beloved, beloveds. Amen.